All right, cool. Thank you. Hey guys, welcome, Joe Foes, Mr. Lard. Thanks for tuning in. Um, it's awesome to have some viewers for this. So, welcome to once again. I'm going to be looking at the Lord of the Rings card game tutorial, kind of an unboxing, if you will, to use a board game term. Although I think they use that for other things as well, besides board games. But I'll be taking a look at the Lord of the Rings card game, talking a little bit about it, and showing the tutorial. Same thing that I did last time. So if you tuned in last time, there'll be a little bit of repeat. I'll try to streamline it a little bit because I'd like to take a look at maybe some of the other features of the game, and also talk a little bit about the reception of the game so far. And Fantasy Flight has even kind of commented on the release and the kind of early release update and status of things right now. So, just to give you a little bit of background about me, I'm Game Face Killer. You may know me from Table Flippin' Games. It's a weekly stream that I do with some friends, and we play board games on Tabletop Simulator, and it's a lot of fun. I decided that I wanted to kind of stream some other games that were out there that are still board game related. They're basically adaptations of board games into sort of the real video game format. And some of these games are really cool. I think that if you like the video game version of it, maybe I could kind of tell you how it would translate into the board game version if you ever wanted to play that, and vice versa. If you're into board games and you're on your own, a solo gamer like I am occasionally, or you're wanting to move into some possible electronic gaming multiplayer options, especially, then there's some really cool options out there. So I can kind of talk about both, since I'm kind of both living on both sides of the hobby. I can kind of talk a little bit about what I know about these two games, especially what I'm starting off with today, which is the Lord of the Rings Living Card Game by Fantasy Flight Interactive, and of course the tabletop version, Lord of the Rings Living Card Game by Fantasy Flight Games. So I'm really excited to be here. Hopefully, you guys will get a lot out of this. Um, Basically, I have played, just to give you a little bit of background, I've played the Lord of the Rings card game as well as many Fantasy Flight games. I've played a ton of them. So I'd say if I'm an expert on anything, my foremost expertise might be the Fantasy Flight game uh, milieu or type of games published by them. They're probably my favorite. Full disclosure, they're probably my favorite game publisher. I really think not only do they have high quality products, but I'm a huge thematic fan. So if you love themes, I think this is something that's really going to appeal to you, this Lord of the Rings card game, especially if you love the Lord of the Rings um, world. I think it's the best. I've played a lot of board games in the Lord of the Rings world, and I think this is by far the best one that really kind of brings in the cooperativeness of being one of the good guys against the dark forces of Sauron. So that's really good. That's a really good aspect. And now, as far as the Lord of the Rings card game goes, I've played up through. So I played the core set many times. I've gotten a lot of different players introduced to it. We've had some difficulty getting a regular game group started, but once Tabletop Simulator came out, we did have a lot more success in playing a lot further into the different campaigns than I ever had physically. It's very hard to get groups together. It's also hard to get together groups of people who really want to take deck building this seriously, because some of these quests are very unforgiving, and you have to have a really well tuned deck to be able to play them. There are some really difficult quests. Um, and so I think the idea is that getting a physical group together is very tough. So you have two options. One is to play it on Tabletop Simulator. There's some really good mods on there for the Lord of the Rings card game. However, with that caveat, please make sure you purchase anything you would play on Tabletop Simulator. I always try to do that. And so you should only play the things that you buy physically. That way you support the makers of the game. So when it comes to your options, you either have that, Tabletop Simulator, or now the Lord of the Rings Living card game has been released by Fantasy Flight Interactive, which is a new company. This is their first game they've developed as sort of with Fantasy Flight Games as their parent company. They're developing sort of the digital aspect. I'm not exactly sure how much they're going to be involved in it. I know that there's already a game in development by another development company that takes place in the Arkham universe, the Mansions of Madness. I can't think of the name of the game, but it's coming out sometime soon. And it looks like it's going to be very much geared toward Mansions of Madness type play, because you're exploring a mansion, solving mysteries in there. Now that game is not supposed to be very much like Mansions Madness, and it's not even made by Fantasy Flight Interactive. So who knows what Fantasy Flight Interactive's goal or where their where their domain is going to lie in the future. But for right now, they've made this card game. They've been really great about having a lot of interaction with the community. There's a weekly stream you can go on and check out, which is really great to keep up with and see the progress of the game. There were a lot of things even after I stopped watching the stream. There's a lot of things that have changed about the game since then, and I'll kind of talk about those later too. Some of the controversies and some of the critical reception of the game. But I think they've always done a really great job of being responsive to the community and trying to talk about the things they're trying to do. And I'd say first and foremost before we go into the game is to make sure to remember that this is early access. So I know how we are as consumers, right? We want to purchase a game and then we want to immediately put out our judgment of it and then have that be the final say, that's our final judgment. But what's tough about that is, of course, is the fact that an early access game is not fully developed yet. It's not finished. It's not fully tuned. There'll be some rules tweaking, changes. Some people think it's too streamlined. It's too simplistic of an adaptation of the Lord of the Rings card game, the physical version. I'm kind of not really sure where I feel on that fence. I really am a fan of the card game, and there are certain aspects I love from the card game. I feel like a lot of the things that I do love have been translated really well, and they make more sense to me. But we'll kind of go into those after I show you the tutorial. Just so you kind of know a little bit of background before we get started, that we'll be kind of talking about these things once we kind of know, obviously, what's going on as far as the different rules and things like that. So we'll go ahead and get started. I went ahead and I haven't started the game yet because I wanted to start it from the beginning so you can kind of see. It has a pretty cool intro. All right. So very cool. I think already the production, even for early access, is really awesome as far as the voice acting, the musical composition. And we're kind of jumping in here. There's always a warning at the beginning right now. If you do, the early access is available for those of you who purchase some aspect of the game. It can be a large purchase. I think the largest pack you can purchase is, and of course I can't remember any of the names of things, but it's about $47, about, rounds out to maybe around close to $50. And then there are smaller tiers below that give you less access. Most of the higher level access is really just kind of cosmetic features, nothing that'll really affect the game. So you can actually get started in the game pretty easily with a smallest purchase, which I think might be $7, around something around that price. So I will try not to leave Gimli out of my starter deck, but I don't get a choice in the tutorial. So we'll kind of be looking. I won't have a lot of choices for a lot of things in the tutorial. We'll be taking a look at that today. But eventually, yes, Gimli is one of my favorites. I hope that he will be a part of my party for a lot of the adventures to come. But anyway, the point is early access. You want to make sure that if you do purchase even a $7, I mean, that's not a very expensive tier, and you get a pretty good amount of pack access right now off the bat. So if you are thinking about that, just keep that in mind. If you do want to participate in early access, it does cost. You have to purchase one of the tiers. When the game actually comes out, it will be free to play if you would like to go that route. Some of the criticism that's kind of come out so far is about how expensive and grindy that is right now, and we'll kind of talk about that a little bit later. But keep in mind this is early access, so when you first log in, you're going to have the news section. You're going to have the play section where you'll probably spend most of your time. You can take a look at your decks, build your decks, name your decks, have all kinds of great decks for different occasions. The Palantir, which we'll probably take a look at sometime later, is where you actually get to look at and reveal cards that you can add or cosmetics that you can add that aren't available in other places. I believe that's how that works. And then the Vault is where you can actually spend money and purchase things, either spending money if you go to the shop or spending your Valor points to purchase certain things. And Valor points can be used, from what I remember from the introduction and the streams from Luke, the community manager, is that your Valor points are basically the currency that can buy anything in the game. And and the Palantir views and Valor are given to you based on the tier. The amount that you're given is based on the tier that you have. You can also change some of the things based on the tier that you have. You can change your avatar, your frame, which I've added sort of a Sauron-ishy frame, and the eye, of course, for right now. The other things that are available, obviously, if you want to tweak any of the options, you can. I'm keeping it at 1920 by 1440, but you can take it all the way up. If I have a widescreen monitor, so you can go 3440 to 1440. Anti-aliasing can go up to 8, which is pretty nice. You can do full screen or windowed. I have everything set this way because it's kind of the easiest way. I tried a lot of different options for streaming. This seems to work the best. The other cool thing that's available in a couple places while you're playing the game too, you can also look at a glossary of terms. There are a lot of terms for the game, so it's a good idea to have that glossary handy in case you need to remind yourself what a certain trait is in the game. So what I'm going to be doing is, and you can obviously see credits. I don't know if there's any other. Yeah, there's no other languages, but I know they are building other localizations. So I think those will be available soon, which is pretty cool. There's also, if I click this button, it brings up a window where I can find out the up-to-date FAQ information about the game, the different aspects of it, cards, that kind of thing. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to replay the tutorial, which I did the last Tuesday's stream. I'm an expert on. I'm a pretty good expert, I think, on this game, and just from watching the stream and also playing the physical card game. But what I'm not an expert on is recording my VODs on Twitch. And so that's why I'm doing this Encore stream, so I can get this recorded and turn it into a YouTube upload so that anybody can watch it, kind of review. So I'm going to replay the tutorial here. All right. So obviously we're starting this tutorial with Bilbo, which is really cool. All right, so definitely a very cool setup even for the tutorial already. So I'm really excited about about the aspect that already there seems to be quite a bit of polish on the game as far as content. So we are now in the early access for the tutorial. You are about to play a rough cut of this tutorial, which I'm really excited to see how this will kind of evolve. Maybe I'll do some streams if it gets to the point where it evolves pretty well. We'll come back and look at the tutorial and how it's changed. This sets the scene for the first campaign of the game, which is the Shadow's Reach. So we'll be polishing this tutorial for further during our early access period, revising the flow, changing narrative beats and dialogue, and further improving the experience for the eventual full release. And I like that they're making sure to remind players of that, although I think there are still some people who are maybe really quick to judge, even though this is an early access product. So the first thing you do in order to kind of learn the layout of the game is to roll over the different features that are highlighted around the edges of the board. So if I go to starting at the top here, this is my objective for the quest. So every quest has certain stages, and each stage, if you click on the title of the location, it will let you know what your objective is. You got to complete that objective to move to the next quest or the next location. So in this quest stage, I have to defeat the next two enemies that appear. Seems simple enough. Up here, you've got your game options. You can adjust those. It's the same as the ones you saw in the main menu. No real difference there, but you do have access to the glossary, so remember that. And I think the glossary is also accessed... Oh no, this is history. So you can click on this at any time and see the last cards that have been played, either by you or Sauron, and you can highlight them and get a closer look at them, because sometimes the game kind of speeds through Sauron's actions, and you might have to go back and look at what was just played to get a grip on what just happened to you. But that's the history button. This button here on the right, or this scale here on the right, is a meter. It's your threat meter. So one of the objects of the game is to keep your threat meter below 50. If it ever reaches 50 or higher, you lose the game automatically because you become too... Sauron has become too aware of your presence. You've got to kind of stay in hiding out of sight of Sauron. And so this is the gauge that kind of abstractly tracks that. Right now I'm at 0 threat, as you can see on the meter. However, that is not how you'll ever start the game. You always start the game with heroes, and depending on the hero's threat level, that's totaled up. You have 3 heroes, you total the threat level of all the heroes, and that's your starting threat. So you could start off with 20, sometimes close to 30 or more, and that makes you makes it a lot more dangerous because of the fact that you're so much closer to 50. Right here, you have the Sauron's resources circle. This tells you how many resources Sauron has to play cards. You also have an indication of how many cards he has here, which he has 5. He seems to always have a lot of cards, so I think he gets a lot of card draws throughout his game. Down here is the turn button, or the phase button. It'll show the current phase that you're on, and then it will also show you, if you click on it, it'll progress you to the next round when you're finished playing your actions. Over here on the right, or on the left, I'm sorry, we've got all of our information here. You've got the player deck. Those are all the cards you'll use in the quest. Everyone always starts with 30 cards in their deck, so every player will have the same amount of cards. You can roll over and see how many there are, but I think physically it depletes, so you kind of get this visual effect too that decreases as you use your cards. Over here you've got the glossaries. This is where the glossary was. I accidentally clicked in the wrong place. So anytime you want to look up any terms that are used on traits and cards, you can always remind yourself here. Right here is my resources. Those are in blue. And this lets you know how many resources you have to play cards. Resources is like an abstract currency. Every round you get 3 resources replenishing. So you gotta, and if you don't spend them, they're carried over. So it's nice. So that's kind of one of the tricks of the game, is to figure out, or strategies of the game is to figure out when you want to spend your resources and when to hold on to them. Over here you have the fate bar, but for some reason I can't click on that yet. Maybe it's because it's going to introduce this to me later, but just keep in mind this will be another track that I want to keep track of throughout the game. So I like when you introduce characters, they kind of have a little catchphrase they say. And it's cool. So you can see here the portrait is of Bilbo. He's my main character here. And he's a hero. You can tell he's a hero because on the frame, there's the wings here on the side, and he's kind of a bronze goldish type color. And so that's how you know you've got a hero here in play. Really quickly, the readout, if you click on him, you can see the details of him. We're going to look at what each feature means. So this is nice about the tutorial. It basically tells you what all the different aspects of the card are to keep track of. You've got the threat value here. Remember I said that adds up at the beginning of the game for your starting threat value. So when I think when I click out this screen, or when I close out of this screen, it's going to show me at 8 threat because he's my starting hero. The card title is pretty clear that it has the name of the character. If it's got this little circle shield symbol beside the name, that means that character is a unique character or a unique item. If that is in play, no other unique item or character can be played. So you've got to make sure and watch that. If you have a lot of copies, or I guess you can have 2 copies at the most in your deck of any card, but if you have one out in play, you can't play another one. Each character has a health value that's in a red shield. That lets you know how many hit points you have. Once you're down to 0, that hero or ally is defeated. In the middle, you have this diamond yellow number. This is your willpower value. That lets you know this is how you complete objectives. If you've played the physical card game, this is the equivalent of the willpower that is used to complete quests and complete location exploration. And it's all consolidated into kind of one. This is a part of the process that's kind of streamlined, is this willpower effect. So questing is not a separate phase. It'll take place at the same time as other things, and you'll see that in a little bit. Every character has a sphere of influence here on the bottom right. They'll either be one of 4 spheres. There'll be leadership, which is purple, lore, which is green, spirit, like Bilbo here, which is blue, and I think the banner will also match their sphere of influence, and neutral. Basically, the sphere of influence in this version of the game has mostly to do with the kinds of cards you can include on your deck. So if I have a sphere, a spirit sphere hero like Bilbo, I can include blue cards in my deck from level 1, and I have to have one of the other types of spheres of influence to include cards from that sphere. And then there's other certain types of cards that are advanced level where I can only play them if, for example, a spirit card of a level 2 nature or rarity, which means I have to have 2 blue heroes in my party to be able to play those. So it gets a little complicated when you want to play upper level cards. You got to have more of that hero type, hero sphere. The trait at the bottom, every hero, every card in the game has some kind of trait. Bilbo has a Hobbit trait, and that is usually some kind of trigger for other certain types of cards, or there are certain equipment that can only be put on Hobbits, for example. So that'll also affect what you can play on them. Card ability, most cards have some kind of ability that lets you, especially heroes, activate some kind of power. So I can exhaust Bilbo to steal 1 to 3 resources from Sauron. So instead of attacking with Bilbo or questing with his willpower, I can use his action to be able to steal resources from Sauron if I feel like he's got too many resources, or try to keep him from playing cards. Bilbo also has an attack power, which is over here in the blue axe, and that is basically an indication of how much damage they'll do when they attack. And that's pretty much it for the hero cards. It'll kind of show us what the breakdown of other cards are here in a second. There is also an attachment tray. This is a pretty cool innovation that they released. It wasn't there at the beginning of the game, but they introduced it later on, and I think it's really innovative because it shows you exactly what you can attach possibly on any character. You can attach 1 weapon, you can attach 1 armor, you can attach 1 special card. So anything that's not a weapon or armor equipment is usually, or attachment, they call them attachments. It's usually a special card. You can only have 1 of those. And then there's 1 shadow, which are the cards that Sauron plays, some of which can be attached to characters and give them some kind of debuff. But this tray is where all of those are listed. You can also kind of highlight certain aspects of the character and see those, but you can always look at them in more detail up here in the tray. There's also 3 buttons that, or more. I think there's 3 at the most. Maybe there's fewer depending on the character or the hero that you're clicking on. There's powers. There's a power button, which is the red diamond here. That activates whatever power. Like I said, Bilbo can steal resources. There's the willpower button, which will be adding to this track over here in the fate pool. And we'll talk about that later when that comes up. And then any hero, or I believe any ally, can be set to guard duty, and that will give them the guard keyword for the rest of the round. And we'll talk about what that means later on. Yes, heroic. It does seem more fighty, but there will be some aspects where you'll see how they're integrating both the combat, which is a pretty heavy part of the physical game, plus the questing at the same time. They don't introduce it right at the beginning, so it does seem like it's going to be very much more combat-y, but it will definitely get into the other side of the coin, the adventuring, which I love that part, and I love how they integrated it actually. So we'll get to that very soon. But right now we're going to take a look really quickly at monster cards. They're pretty much the same as hero cards or any kind of ally cards. They've got a resource cost that costs them for Sauron. They've got a name. Again, they can have a unique symbol by them too, which means Sauron can't play more than one. They've got an attachment tray, just like the heroes or allies. And there is a special debuff that can be added to them by cards that the heroes play, or the player plays. There's also health value in the red shield, a trait at the bottom. This is a creature. The rock adder is a creature. There's a card ability, but you'll notice this snake, this adder, does not have any card ability, so they just have this sort of default decoration symbol here, decorative symbol. It also has an attack of 1, so it does 1 damage when it attacks. So my quest begins. Remember, it's reminding me of my objective for this stage of the quest is to defeat the next 2 enemies that appear. So these are the next 2 enemies. So what happened really quickly there, you didn't get to see that in a lot of detail, but the first phase that happens at the beginning of every turn or round is the upkeep phase. In the upkeep phase, you get 3 resources. So I started with 0, I'm up to 3, and you also get 1 card. But I think later on I get 2 cards. I'll have to remind myself of that. But in the upkeep phase, you get 1 card or maybe 2 cards after the first turn or something like that. So I get a card draw and resources. That's the important thing. Now I'm in the adventure phase. This is the main part of the game where you're going to be taking actions. And what's different about the Lord of the Rings card game is you will actually take actions and then Sauron will take an action and then you'll go back and forth. So unlike the Lord of the Rings card game where, for example, you have all Sauron attacking all at once and you're defending and then you get to attack, each one's a separate phase, everything's kind of integrated together. And this is where I think some of the contention about the simplicity and streamlining of the game is. I think this is where some of the controversy is. But we'll see kind of how it plays out and then kind of talk about this a little later. So here's where we're going to take actions. It's going to dictate my actions because remember I'm playing the tutorial. So I can look at Sting, which is a equipment card that I drew in the upkeep phase. It is an attachment. You can tell by the frame. Attachments have certain frames and allies have certain frames. So this is a unique attachment, right? So we'll look at the... Yeah, it's a unique attachment, so I can only have 1 of those in play. It's got a resource cost just like everything else. I have to pay 2 resources to play it, which would bring me down to 1. It is from the spirit sphere of influence, which means I can't have it in my deck unless I'm playing a spirit hero, at least 1. The ability of this is that I gain 1 attack or 2 attack if I'm attacking an orc or a spider. So there aren't any orcs or spiders yet, but it does give me a +1 boost to my attack, so it might be a good weapon to equip. And every card, just like allies or heroes, have traits. This is a weapon, and that's pretty much it for the equipment. So how do you play cards? You basically drag them out onto the play area, which is kind of cool. They got a little bit of a physical feeling to them here. But you drag them out. Then it asks you to select, for attachments anyway, you're going to select a character to attach it to. And anything that you can legally attach it to is always glowing. And so obviously Bilbo. So you notice what happened was when I equipped it, my attack changed to the color green, which is an important indicator that lets you know that you have some kind of boost going on. And let's see. So now you know how much you're going to attack with it equipped. But if I were to attack, if you remember, an orc or a spider, it's going to actually give me a +1. So I'm going to be up to 4. So I know I can do 4 attack on a spider or an orc. Then what happened is as soon as I played my action, Sauron takes an action, which you saw. He attacked me with the rock adder, who's now exhausted because he's grayed out. He hit me for 1 damage, and now you'll notice my health is no longer white, it is red, which lets me know I've taken some amount of damage. So it's always, the colors are always good indication of any kind of modification to your original stats. So I've taken 1 damage. So now I get another action, and I can basically drag from Bilbo to attack either the left-hand snake, who's already exhausted, or the smarter move would be to attack this snake because, remember, I can do 3 damage, which is enough to knock off all its health, and it will not get to do its attack if I kill it before it gets its action. So I'll do that. And, alright. And you'll notice Sauron passed because he can't take any more actions, or he chose not to take play any more cards with his resources. He's got 3 resources left. Decided not to take any actions. And I'm exhausted too. I have no cards left, and I only have 1 resource. So I think I'm also going to have to, in my round, which it automatically did for me. I think it might auto end the round if you really can't do anything. Okay, so you'll see this time I got 2 cards at the start of my round instead of 1. I believe that might be a start of game thing. I don't know. Joe, can you speak to this in the chat? If you get, so you get 2, but for some reason the first round I only got 1. Maybe that was just a tutorial thing. So you'll always get 2. And you'll notice that both of our guys, his and mine, both are unexhausted in the upkeep phase too. Yes, so here's the rule. We got the final ruling. You get 3 resources, draw 2 cards. That was just a tutorial thing. Yeah, thanks, Joe. Okay. So you'll notice that it's telling me now about attachment. So it's basically saying you can only have 1 attachment of each type. You remember I gave Bilbo Sting, so I can't equip another weapon, but if I click on this, the trait is special, so we know this is going to be fill in the special tray slot. If I play this on Bilbo, every upkeep Sauron is going to lose 1 resource, so instead of getting 3 every round, he'll only get 2. That's a pretty good card to play. It cost me 2 resources. I'm assuming I've got to play this. Okay, so I highlight Bilbo because he's glowing. And unfortunately, here's the downside. If I had attacked first, which the tutorial didn't let me, I would have killed this guy. Then I could have equipped the cloak, and I wouldn't have taken damage, but it kind of made me do it out of optimal order. But now it wants me to attack the snake. I'm going to easily kill it because I can do 3 damage. Alright, so you'll notice at the top of the screen the travel button has activated. This is kind of a cool feature because you can decide whether or not you want to stick around here and play more cards, build up your resources before you travel, because maybe at the start of the next phase there's going to be a lot of things that are going to pop up. So traveling is an option whenever you have a travel button. Sometimes the quest phase will travel automatically and you won't have a choice. But in this case, I can travel whenever I want, but I think it's going to make me travel on the tutorial. You'll notice here on the right, my threat level is 9, and you may be asking yourself, wait a second, Bilbo only has a threat of 8, and so it moved up for that, but where did that extra threat come from? At the end of every round you play, your threat goes up by 1. So that's kind of a timekeeping, slowly building suspense, making you feel like the forces of evil are closing in on you. Okay, so I am going to select travel. All right, so some mysterious creature, I have no idea who it is tracking me. Okay, so the objective in this new stage has changed. Now I've got to secure the camp from the spider incursion. And the first time I played this, so we got upkeep phase. I got 2 cards and 3 resources. Okay, so here it says that there are certain cards that trigger during upkeep. So I'm not sure if maybe he's going to play a card maybe when I click this check mark. We're going to see if something triggered because of card. Okay. If it happened, I don't know what it was. But anyway, we started this quest phase. Things will pop in sometimes at the beginning of the quest phase. Here we had 3 spiders, and we can't click on them yet because it wants us to look at this new objective card. So this is what I was talking about earlier when I mentioned the stream, kind of the integration, the synthesis of questing phase and combat phase into basically the main adventure phase altogether. So you still remember you alternate actions between you and Sauron back and forth, but one of the new options you have besides fighting creatures is completing these quests. These quests are completed not with your combat value but with your willpower, which the diamonds match, which is kind of nice. The color and the shape match what you have versus what you need, so it's easy to keep track of. And this objective or quest, to complete this, it says beasts threaten all around you, secure the camp from your foes. And I guess in order to do that, I've got to have Bilbo or Gloin, who just joined me, contribute enough willpower equal to the willpower value of the quest. Or it's called the quest value. The quest value is on the quest card. It lets you know how many you need to complete the objective. Some cards have a unique symbol by their title. Every card has a title. Then there's an ability. So sometimes there'll be an ability that will affect you until you complete the quest. Like, for example, it might knock out one of your heroes, or it might temporarily debuff your heroes or take away something. But if you complete the quest, you can stop that from happening. So it's a really cool feature where you're not actually fighting, you're completing quests, but you're doing it at the same time, and you've got to decide how best to use your character actions. And this is one of the reasons why I think this game is really staying true to the heart of Lord of the Rings, the card game, the physical card game, because if you think about it, if you remember the physical game, you can only do one action. You can either quest or you can fight, and the fighting is either defending or attacking. So you actually have to choose which of those 3 actions you want to do every round. This game still has that. So if you quest, that's the only thing you can do. If you attack, that's the only thing you can do. But so you're really just using the same things, you're just doing them all at the same time, and instead of in separate phases like they are in the physical game. So I think some people are being really critical of them taking away those separate phases, but I think that they're still here, they're just done simultaneously, which kind of adds an interesting element to the game, because some characters can still be affected even though they might technically be out of the game once the quest phase is over. You might be able to kind of reintegrate them into the game. Or you can decide when you're doing the quest phase, instead of always having it before the combat phase like it is in the physical card game, you can decide when you're going to handle the quests. And so I feel like there's an interesting change and evolution of the card game, but it's in an interesting way where I still think they're keeping the heart of the game involved as far as the physical game. Okay, so I'll get off my soapbox. So Forest Protector is obviously what it wants me to play. It looks like this is an ally. It's a Sylvan ally. And so that means that it is from I believe the Sylvans were the forest elves. Hopefully I'm not bad on my lore. Now you'll notice when I pop this card out, it has the guard keyword, and now there's a rotating shield with the elven text around it, floating around it. So what this means is, this is now in guard mode. And what this means is that, as it says here in the text box, no other target of mine can be targeted or engaged with an attack until this guy is is hit first. Now there's a trick in the real game. Cards can take the attacks. You can decide who's going to defend and who's going to attack. Here, you can decide, for example, who you're going to defend with. However, the guard only lasts for one attack. So that is kind of an interesting change, and I'm not sure what I think about that yet. The fact that defenders can only really be set up to guard once, but we'll see how it kind of works out. So you'll notice the spiders right off the bat attacked him. Sauron actually was smart and attacked me with a one attack unit instead of his 2 attack unit. The other thing that's awesome about guard, however, is that when it is attacked, a character with guard will reciprocate damage. So while he did 1 damage to me, I did 1 damage back to him, which is pretty cool. And it exhausted him. So now I only have to worry about doing 1 damage to finish him off. Alright. The other thing that's really cool about guard is that if your character is unexhausted and he's got guard mode as a trait, he or she will guard and then still be able to take an action. However, if I were to exhaust this character by attacking first, it would no longer have guard. So that's an important thing to remember too. So now it wants me to attack the forest spider, who is a 4 health, with Bilbo. And the reason why, if you remember, is because he has the... Oh, he lost his weapon, didn't he? Oh, it's not showing the weapon. This must be a glitch. Because I do still have Sting attached, but it's not showing up in the attachment tray. But that's okay. I know that, remember, I can attack orcs and spiders for an extra +1 damage. So that's actually going to be 4 damage, and that's enough to kill him. So that's why I'm attacking him. You notice it changed to +1 temporarily. Then, of course, the hatchling spider attacked me as revenge for killing its big brother. So I was exhausted by attacking, and it was exhausted by attacking. So now all of its enemies are exhausted. And I've still got 2 guys, an ally and a hero. You'll notice the allies have a different frame than the heroes. They've got just a simple gray frame, silver frame. I'm going to attack this spider. He takes 1 damage and dies. Oof. So he just played a giant spider who has guard, as you can see from the rotating red shields. He's got 6 health, does 2 damage. It's going to take a lot to kill this guy. What I can do is play this event card. This is a preparation card. It's a special type of event which will put a little dot down here. You'll see it when I play it. And what it's going to do is it's going to lay in wait, and Sauron's not going to know what I played. You notice it puts this little mark here, this little pip. And that means that I've got a preparation card ready, and if I click on it, it'll tell me which card it was that I had ready. However, Sauron doesn't know, and if he plays preparation cards, you'll notice he has little slots here. He can play up to 5 too, just like me. If he plays a preparation card, then something I will do will trigger those cards in his hand, or that he's played. So Sauron knows that I've prepared something. He doesn't know what I've prepared. And so what he's probably going to do is attack me, and then it'll get blocked. Yep, it's triggered. He's attacking. Reduces the attack to 0, and so Gloin takes no damage. So now I've got to decide what to do with Gloin. Obviously, it wants me to attack this spider to finish him off, so he won't be able to go to the next round. So I'll go ahead and do that. All right, so Sauron passed. We know he's not taking any more actions, even though he's got 5 resources. I can play my Starbruch, which is awesome. It gives the character Stalwart. So I'll play it, and I'll show you what that means. I'm going to attach it to Gloin because he does good damage. My upkeep, I'll get 2 cards and 3 resources, same as Sauron. Sauron's got a lot of resources. I'm kind of worried. So, so you'll notice I now have a leadership card in my deck. The purple leadership symbol is in the bottom right, and the banner is also purple. The reason why I can play these cards or have them in my deck is because if you remember, Gloin got added, and he is a hero. Remember, in the real game, you're actually going to start with all three of your heroes out at the same time. This is a tutorial thing where it's trying to introduce you to one at a time. But Gloin is a leadership hero, so I can have leadership cards in my deck. He's pretty awesome because not only is he a good attacker, he has a pretty good amount of health for an ally, but he's also ranged, which we'll see what that means in a second here. So we've got another forest spider out. Okay, so ranged means, what that means is that you can actually bypass guard and attack another character or another creature. So instead of having to attack this king spider here, I can attack this forest spider. Does 2 damage. And then he does 2 damage to my protector. He's almost dead, so I'm trying to think about what I might do with him, but it's not going to let me choose. I've got to attack with Gloin, who is going to attack the king spider. So he probably attacked my hero Bilbo because Bilbo's he's trying to reduce Bilbo pretty quickly, which he's down to 3. I got to worry about that a little bit. Gloin did 2 damage, and you'll notice he did not exhaust. That's because the Stalwart ability lets you activate twice in a round. So that's pretty awesome. He's basically going to get to do 2 things in a round instead of 1 because of that brooch. So I'm going to attack the protector, or I'm going to attack with my protector. I'm going to attack this forest spider. That'll finish him off. Okay, so Sauron played an event, which is a hazard, and it's a special type of objective. You'll notice it has the same kind of frame shape as objectives or quests. The difference is that Sauron's hazards have sort of this Sauron-y look to them. They're a little bit more jagged, whereas the regular objectives that I have to complete, usually to get past the quest phase, are more rounded. They sort of look, more human. A hazard is an optional objective. So the other thing about hazards is that you do not have to do them if you don't want to. However, they usually have some kind of terrible event that happens or ability that gives Sauron advantage or hurts your characters. So for this is a Sauron advantage. Every upkeep he's going to get +1. So basically the cloak that I have on Bilbo is canceled out. It takes 3 willpower. This is the quest value. It takes 3 willpower to beat this quest, and it cost him 1 resource. Bilbo is going to attack the king spider, which, if you remember, he's going to get a +1 and kill this guy because of sting. Okay. Oh, and then he lost that advantage. I guess it tells you that the +1 goes back off after he attacks the spider. So Sauron just played another event. He gets to gain 1. This is a crown symbol, or his Sauron crown, so it's a +1 threat for him. Notice my threat's building over here. It's now at 24, partly because it added Gloin, who also has a threat value. So now I've got 2 heroes, plus every round I add 1 threat, and it's slowly building. It's kind of got a cool lava, molten looking look, which is cool. The other thing you'll notice is that up here at 28, this circle is on here because there's something terrible that's going to trigger when I move up past that marker. And so I really want to watch out for that, because I got to make sure that doesn't happen at a moment when I'm really vulnerable. Okay. The only characters that can engage hazards or objectives are ones with willpower. So for example, I couldn't use my archer here, but I could use any unexhausted character. And Gloin is the only one who could do this. So because he has Stalwart, I'm going to be able to quest here. And I just said before, Stalwart means they can act twice in a round. He's going to complete this objective. Okay. So what happens is, remember, Sauron gets a turn after every action I take. He gets an action. I did complete the objective to secure the camp from spider incursion, so I can travel. The travel option's available. So I can decide now whether I want to go another round. All my guys are exhausted. I can play an outrider. I have enough resources, but I don't know if it's going to let me. But I have to decide now whether I want to play more cards, or take more actions, or end the phase and travel later. I can travel, and then the nice thing will be that I will leave behind the spider, and I'll leave behind the hazard. But if the enemy is unexhausted when I travel, they will they will get to attack. Any enemy that's unexhausted gets to attack. I don't believe I have a choice here, though. It's going to make me travel, so you'll see what happens. Like it says, any enemy that's not exhausted gets to attack. So it's probably going to kill my protector. Yep. So I lost that ally. What could be going on? We don't know, right? So, the next stage of the tutorial. Final encounter. So that we know this is the last stage of the quest. I've got to destroy the spider's nest to complete this quest. And I'm assuming the spider's nest, it's not out yet, but it will become available at some point. So one of the things that you'll notice is when I traveled, a lot of times when you travel to a new quest leg, there are a ton of enemies that are going to pop up. So that's the reason why I was mentioning earlier, it might be a good idea to not travel as quickly if you feel like you don't have enough resources built up. Just keep in mind that your threat's still going to go up every round, and that Sauron is going to keep getting resources and be able to play cards, and some of those might actually block you from traveling. And so you really have to weigh the pros and cons of traveling and pushing on so you don't lose too much time versus being ready for the next leg of the quest. For this leg, I got to destroy the spider's nest. I'm going to get 3 resources, 2 cards, same as Sauron. So now I'm facing a king spider, big guy. He has block, so that means it will reduce by 1 the damage that I do to him. 2 spider guards. They have 4 hit points, only do 1 attack, but they both have guards, so that means I have to attack them first before I can attack the king spider. Then there's an objective here. It's the Cloaked Stranger. If I complete this quest, it has a value of 5. I can rescue the Cloaked Stranger from the spider's ambush. Sounds like maybe I might find some useful assistance. So first it wants me to attack a spider guard with Bilbo. That will easily kill one, so that makes sense to do that. Okay. So Sauron took his action to use the King Spider, which is probably smart, to do 3 damage before I could play something that would exhaust him or turn guard on myself. So he got his choice of who he's going to do 3 damage to. He did that to my Mirkwood Watcher. So now he's down to 1 hit point. It wants me to play the Rovanian Outrider. Rovanian, if you'd like to say it that way. Now this guy's cool. You can tell his ability. He's made for questing. Every time he quests, when a quest is at its full quest value, so that means right now, he gains +1 willpower. So he actually would have 3 if he quested on this quest. So I think he's going to be useful. I want to save him from questing. As you can see, certain characters are still going to be made just for questing. And so I want to be really careful to protect these guys if there's a lot of questing I got to do in a certain phase. So now, oh yeah, thanks, Saluk. I do agree. I do think there's a lot of changes on the game for sure. But it's kind of interesting how they're integrating quest phase and combat phase together in this virtual card game. I think it's really going to play out in some cool ways, especially when you consider how the evolution of locations from the physical card game plus main quest stages are kind of going to be integrated together. And I'll kind of show that as we look not just at this tutorial here, but then as it gets a little more advanced as we start the first quest, you'll see a little bit more integration of that. But a lot of things are still the same too, or at least the spirit of them are here, like the impending doom of the threat, those kind of things. It's pretty cool. So Gloin is being tasked here in the tutorial to attack this king spider. And you'll notice, like I said before, unlike the physical card game, damage is not simultaneous. Although I guess technically in the physical card game, the enemies did damage to you, and then you could decide to attack them. So they were different stages of the game. And here they've kind of integrated that where if you're attacking, you're not taking damage from them at the same time. Oh, like we said earlier, this guy has block, which means he took 1 less damage. So instead of 2, I just did 1, unfortunately. Yeah. Oh, he just played Greedy Fingers, which discarded a random hero attachment. So that was an event treachery card he played. It took my cloak, so now, unfortunately, he's back to his normal 3 resources per turn. So Gloin, who has Stalwart, I can't remember if I've used 1 or 2 of his actions yet, but I think just 1. I'll have him attack this guard spider. So he just played Eyes of the Forest. Sauron gets +1 resource. That's a resource symbol for every ally in play. Okay, so I've 1 ally. That's not a great card. Gave him 1. Now you'll notice it's bringing up my Rovanian Outrider, who is equipped for questing. So I'm obviously going to use him for questing. So he gets +1 resource whenever I try to complete an objective that is at its full value. So I'm only going to get this +1 bonus this first time. Alright, so you notice I got the +1 temporarily, and now the quest objective is down to 2. I can keep taking actions, which is kind of cool. We go back and forth. I do an action, Sauron does an action, but at some point he might pass, which lets me continue with as many actions as I want to. I'll go ahead and play the Watchful Peace, which is going to give me a little breathing room because it's going to reduce my threat by 2. So now I'm down to 23. So I don't have to worry as much about this event triggering that's going to come at threat 28. Now you'll notice it will auto end the round if you and Sauron don't have anything to do, which is pretty nice. Keeps track of that for you. You'll also notice, which is really cool, any card that you can play, that you have the resources for, will glow in your hand. So you'll know which cards you still have available that you could play as kind of a reminder. So upkeep phase, I got 3 resources. So did Sauron, and we both got cards. In this version of the game, you get 2 card draws every upkeep, which is kind of nice. So sneak attack. This was one of my favorites from the physical card game, and it's pretty cool how they translated this into the virtual one, because when you play it, just like the physical one, you get to play a random ally, although that ally gains fleeting, which means that they're only in the game for just 1 round, and then they disappear. Now the cool thing about the virtual game is, instead of picking an ally from your deck, you actually get a totally random ally from anywhere in the game. So it's not even a card necessarily that's in your deck that gets played. It could be any ally that is available to you in your pool of cards that you have available. So it's pretty crazy. It's a lot more RNG, which is pretty cool, but it could end up being something awesome. We'll see when we play it. Alright, so the tutorial has this built in. I got an Imladris Caregiver, which isn't terrible. It's going to heal 2 on arrival. It's an arrival ability, so that means it happens as it's played. I pick 1 character to get 2 hit points back. Obviously, I'm going to pick Bilbo. He's down to 2 hit points. Now he's back up to 4. And this guy is... pretty useless now, although he's pretty good willpower, so he might still be a good leftover quester, which is kind of nice. His arrival ability's been used, and he doesn't really do any combat damage. Sauron did play a hazard, which, like we said, are kind of like quest objectives, but they're optional. And now what's happening to me is every ally I play is going to come into play exhausted, so this kind of sucks. So I might want to complete this if it'll let me, because I want to play the Warden of Anumanus. Anuminus. Anuminas. I think that's how you say it. I don't know. These words, right? But I can't play him because he'll come into play exhausted. But it's not going to let me do that. Glowing wants me to attack the Spider Guard with Glowing, which makes sense because he's unexhausted. I could finish him off and he won't get to do his 1 damage. That's smart. Alright, so my King Spider did his 3 damage to my Outrider, which sucks because he is down to just 2 hit points. But the cool thing is we've got a new objective here that's full, and it's 3. The quest objective is 3, which means that this Rovanian Outrider, his ability gives him +1 if it's at its full level, which it is. So I'll actually get the full 3 that I need to complete it. Nice. I know I didn't get to sneak attack Gandalf, which would have been awesome, but I think they built it in so the tutorial doesn't give you a huge hitter right off the bat. But yeah, it would be really cool to play in playing the real game if you got Gandalf just when you needed him. That'd be awesome. Okay, so it wants me to use the Caregiver to quest here, which makes sense. He can't really do too much else. So I finish this main quest. So this kind of points out that in a normal game, you'll have 3 standard heroes, 3 heroes. You get to choose who they are because this is a deck builder game, obviously. Alright, so now we have Grimbjorn, who's an awesome hero. He's 9 threat, so it's pretty high threat, but he does come into play with 9 hit points, 3 willpower for questing, and 1 attack. Not great attack, but if you'll notice his upkeep ability is awesome too. Every upkeep he heals a character 1 hit point, so that's pretty awesome. So now I've got a full complement of heroes. This is how much I'll have in a normal game. I did pass the 28 mark, and I think that's going to happen in the next upkeep phase. So I know I've already triggered it. Something bad's going to happen. I want to try to clear the board as much as possible. Hopefully the tutorial will let me do that, because something bad is going to happen next upkeep phase. It's triggered already. I'm up to 32 because, again, this guy brought in 9 threat, which I would normally have at the beginning. If I had this party, I would have 28 threat, which is pretty high, more than halfway to 50. But I could probably do it if I could get through it fast enough. But I'm at 32 threat right now. There's a new objective, and here's the spider's nest that, if you remember the quest objective, I've got to destroy it. And there's a special additional element to this. I cannot engage it while the king spider is in play. So this is the king spider. I've got to take him down, take him out, and then I can take out the nest, because I guess he's guarding. So Gloin is attacking the king spider. We got to get him down. Okay, so I'm going to use Bilbo's power to gain an advantage against Sauron. I'm going to use his power, which exhausts him, but I can steal 1 to 3 resources from Sauron, which is pretty awesome. I only stole 1, which is a ripoff. Oh, and I get it, which is awesome too. I got the resource for myself. He played Watchers in the Dark, which gives him a threat, so now I'm up to 33. Oof. So I'm going to play Ever Vigilant, which is pretty awesome because it will ready any character. For 1 resource, that's a pretty good trade-off. It wants me to ready Bilbo, which makes sense because he's the heavy spider fighter. And yeah, I figured it was going to have me attack the king spider. Remember, I got +1 against spiders, so he'll do 4 damage. Oh, but the king spider blocked 1, so it only does 3 damage. So he's down to 2. It's giving me a little tutorial hint here. Some characters can be useful in ways other than battle. Characters with willpower can take an action to add to your fate pool. So this is an additional option for during quests. Is instead of going for these objectives and just finishing off the quest, I can actually contribute willpower instead to this fate pool here on the right. And if I can get it up to this point where it triggers an ability here, this diamond, I don't know if it'll ever let you know what that is. I think it's a surprise. But if I can get my willpower up to 2 or higher, I can add, I might get a special ability to trigger, which will be really useful to me. So I'm going to have Grimborn do that. To do that, you click on a character, and you'll see this yellow diamond here with a star. It matches the fate symbol. You click that and automatically exhaust this character. So again, you have to choose which action you want to do. If you want to fight, you got to fight. If you want to quest or add to the fate pool. So I'm going to add to the fate pool. And now I've gone past the trigger for the fate event. And what I'm going to be doing is I click on that and it gives me an option. I have unexpected aid. So I can spend this 2 fate to draw a card. Just when things look dire indeed, assistance arrives from an unexpected source. So I will click yes, I want to use that. So I go back down to 1. And you'll notice the trigger is gone. So most triggers can only be done one time. And there might be some quests with multiple triggers. I think I remember seeing one that had multiple triggers. The total fate you can build up is 12. And I have already tested this the first quest phase. Or the first time I ran through this tutorial. You don't get anything for reaching the maximum. But I think it might affect your final score. So if you can boost it up, it might increase your score in the end. And you'll notice I got the Great Gandalf. Oh, okay, so you can click on the diamond. Thanks, Penguin. You can click on the diamond. I wasn't sure if you can... Oh, you can click on the fate, the threat event also. So you'll always know what's coming up. So I know next round, a random character is going to receive 2 damage. You hear a mighty hiss as a spray of green poison comes from the darkness. Oh, so spiders are spitting. The emerald liquid strikes one of your party and burns like acid. So somebody randomly is going to be taking damage next round. So I can't do anything else. I could play the Warden, but for some reason it just wants me to end. So as you remember, Imladra's caregiver was brought in with sneak attack, so it has to leave. It's fleeting. It's just telling me about threat. My threat's going up, and now it's going to activate during the upkeep phase because I triggered the threat event. So everybody unexhausts. I get 2 cards and 3 monies. And now my random character is going to be dealt damage. Okay, so Penguin gave me an update. Thanks for helping me clarify a little more. Your score is affected by the number of fate events you trigger. So we did trigger 1. So you definitely want to try to get your fate built up a little bit, not by your total fate. Okay, so as long as you're triggering events, that'll help your score out. But now at this point, I don't really have a reason to keep pumping money or pumping fate resources into the fate track. So Grimbjorn's going to heal one of my people. And this is the dilemma. Do I heal the Rovanian Rider, which gets him up to 3? He will still be killable by the King Spider. So it might not be the most useful use of that heal. I think I'm going to give it to Bilbo again, just so that he won't be killed. Well, he won't die from 1 hit, but it'll add up if I don't help him out. So now it wants me to show you the guard feature. So any character can be picked to guard. You basically select the character, and then there's a blue shield button. And once you select that character has guard, and that exhausts them. So it does cost an action to set up guard in a voluntary way, whereas earlier the character that I play that had guard automatically gets it when they come into play, and so that's why that character still got to complete an action, whereas I voluntarily activated it on a character that didn't have the trait, so it did exhaust them. Well learned. While there is more to discover that will help you on your quest, you have learned the fundamentals that will carry you through this battle. So it's taught me quite a bit. Now it's going to leave it to me to defeat the King Spider and destroy the nest. So I'm now at the point of the game where I've got to do this on my own, which is great. So we have no more threat events, thankfully, except for the last one, which ends the game for me if I get to 50. I've got a guy on guard, so he's going to be the first one hit. So what I probably want to do is I want to make sure that I take out the ability for any creature to do, well, I have 2 creatures that can do 3 damage. If I make him use one of them on this rider, that's good because that'll be 3 less damage on any of my heroes. So what I could do is I could attack the bats and do enough damage to destroy them, or I could attack one of the spiders. Oh, I want to do many things. Oh, well, this is simple. I got to play Gandalf. I mean, I got Gandalf. I got to play him, right? And you'll see why. When you play him, he costs 5 resources. He does 4 damage. He has 4 willpower and 5 health. He seems amazing, right? But just like Gandalf in the movies, he's never there for very long. He has fleeting, so when he comes into play, he stays into play for the rest of the round, so he can help you out, but then he leaves. So I'll play him. Awesome line. And when he arrives, he has you have 3 choices. You can either draw 3 cards, which is pretty cool, although I think I have a lot of good cards right now. I can lose 3 threat, which isn't bad, but I'm only at 35, so I'm not really worried about that. But what's even better is I can do 3 damage right now. So I might as well do this damage to the King Spider, because that will take out his 3 damage that he can do. And then I'll just be down to the bats or the... Oh, I accidentally clicked the wrong thing. That was dumb. But he actually made a stupid move too. He should have used his bats to attack my guard. And then he would have got to do 3 damage to something else. But I accidentally attributed damage to the wrong thing. I meant to attribute it to the King Spider, which would have taken him out before he could have done damage. So now I can get... The cool thing is I can get rid of this 3 damage spider before he can just do any more destruction with that. So I'll use Gloin, only because I want to save Bilbo since he has a lot more damage he can do. Okay, so the bats attack Gandalf, which isn't bad because if you think about it, Gandalf is going to leave anyway at the end of the round. So even if he dies or just leaves because he's fleeting, he'll be gone. It's not a big deal. So now I've got to decide. I really would like to, before I quest and finish the game, I'd like to clear the board. I've actually got to kill this King Spider before I can even quest, so I should do that first. I want to attack and kill things with the low willpower guys so that my high willpower guys can quest. So I'm going to use Bilbo to attack the spider. And then I'll use... See what I should have done if I was smart. I would have used Gloin to attack the spider because he does have enough damage, and then Bilbo would have been a hard hitter, and he would have had enough damage left over to kill this King Spider, or Spider Guard. Unfortunately, I'm going to have Gandalf go after him, and he's got plenty of damage to kill him. But I won't get to use his willpower for questing. So, see, you still got the same dilemmas, I think, as the physical card game. Do I use Gandalf for questing and use his huge willpower to help out with questing, or do I use him for attack or defense? And I could have even put him on guard, too, if he was still unexhausted, which might have been cool. But I definitely think his attack and willpower is the most useful use of him. So now I can have Gloin... I should have Gloin attack the spider because he's got a low willpower, so he won't be good at questing. And now, we have more spiders coming. So I don't want to play a Watchful Peace, even though you'll notice the card's glowing. I could play it, but I don't want to because I want to try to bring out Gandalf again next round. And I need all my resources to do that. So Grimbeorn could attack the spider. He'll only do 1 damage, and the spider will be able to attack him for 1. So he's going to get attacked for 1 anyway, probably, or one of these other guys will. So I might as well have him quest because his willpower is so good. that quest progress is always smart with him, I think. Okay, so he attacked Gloin, which is pretty good because he actually had the most hit points. And then I'm going to go on. I'm going to end the phase voluntarily. So he gained a threat with a card he played. Let me make sure that's what that card said. Oh, that's actually an attachment. So he attached this to his bats. I can't look at it now because I've got to do this event where I've got to heal somebody. I will heal Bilbo again. But you'll notice he got an attachment card, which is a shadow card. It's pretty cool for him because this lets him, at the end of every round, gain one threat. But it's attached to this creature, so if I kill this creature, it'll go away, which is what I want to do. I'll have Gloin attack the bats. So now we don't have to worry about that extra threat. He attacked Gloin, and it's kind of getting his health low. But I don't have to worry because I'll kill him. Now he's got no creatures. Oh, so he just played a treachery card, and you'll notice I didn't get to see what it was because it's a preparation card. So he's got a... Something is going to trigger by some action that I do. It could be when I attack, when I try to complete this objective. It could be when I play a card. And so this really gets you paranoid. It's a kind of a cool element that's not in the physical card game because you have to worry about Sauron actually feeling like an active player that's reacting to you. So I'm going to play... if I play Gandalf, he might have his card might block it, like stop me from bringing a character into play. Or it might be exhausted, which would suck for him because it would basically make him useless and then he would disappear at the end of the round. So what do I do? What do I do? I could just finish the game by questing, but I'm going to try to play Gandalf. Okay, so I can either lose 3 threat. You notice the damage is not on there because there's no creatures. I can lose 3 threat or draw 3 cards. I'll draw 3 cards. So I got Feint, Gaining Strength, and Galadorn Archer. So I have no money, so there's nothing I can play. Nothing's glowing, as you can see. So now I just might as well finish questing. And I'll use Gandalf. Uh-oh. Oh, so the tutorial ended. All right, so that's kind of the ending of it. It leaves you hanging for the campaign because Bilbo has been kidnapped and they've got to gather together and go after him. Oh yeah, so Luke, you did bring up the fact that the treachery cards, the preparation treachery, is kind of an interesting way for them to evolve or adapt the shadow cards, which were a random card that kind of was a surprising random effect that could happen during combat with creatures, with Sauron's creatures. So that is right. I completely forgot about the shadow cards are what that's replacing. So yeah, that's such a cool, I think a really cool evolution because you're still, I remember during combat you're always worried about that shadow card because it could be something that could add a +1 to their attack, which would totally kill your character. If it's, or it could be some terrible event that would basically just knock your character out for the round. And so I think it really carries over that dread and that worry of, oh my gosh, whatever action I take, is it going to cancel it? I want to play Gandalf, but is he going to get completely, fatigued and exhausted? So yeah, it's really cool that it can trigger on anything. So whereas the shadow cards only took place during combat, this new treachery preparation mechanic is something that could trigger anything you do: questing, combat, attack, defense, anything, event cards you play. So yeah, adds a lot more. I feel like threat and dread to the game. Cool. So this is supposedly, I've not played the first quest yet, but it's supposedly going to carry over into the first campaign. All right, so we continue on. Really good voice acting, I think, so far, which is awesome. And then, of course, if I were to play, it will now take me into the overview campaign map. And I believe when you click on these different locations, each one will be a different campaign. And there's several quests here, 5 quests in this campaign, in the tutorial so far, or I'm sorry, in the early release so far. I have to complete each one before I can get another one. The cool thing is when you start off in the game, you can actually just get right into it by using the starter deck that they provide, which has Aragorn, leadership character, and Arwen, who is a lore character, and Gimli, who is a tactics character. These characters are similar to... I don't believe Arwen was a starting course set character, but the other two were. If you ever bought the physical game core set, you got the first Aragorn and Gimli for sure, who are awesome leadership and tactics characters respectively. But Arwen, adding her to the mix into the mix right off the bat is awesome. I think it's an awesome move. Eventually, you will be able to play co-op, which is really awesome. Once the real game releases, you can play cooperatively with another person, which, again, I think this is really a great distinction of this game from other games that are out there. It is being compared a lot to other free-to-play or kind of pay-to-progress type games like Hearthstone or I can't remember the name of the Elder Scrolls ones, but there's a lot of handheld or phone mobile games that are supposedly very similar to this. But this is the first one I've played that is a cooperative deck building adventure where you're playing against the game. And of course, there's 3 levels of difficulty right now that you can play against. I'm sure at some point they might have something like nightmare mode for some of the games. So it's just pretty cool to think about all the possibilities. And of course, this map is really huge, so you can imagine all the different quests and scenarios they can add eventually. So I just want to take one quick second to look at... Actually, now that I'm kind of thinking about it, I think what I'm going to do is save looking at some of the other menu options until tomorrow. Tomorrow is my normal stream day. I did want to do this Encore before I did tomorrow's regular stream. So tomorrow I'll be kind of looking at some of the other aspects like the vault and the decks and the Palantir. And then I'll be kind of going into and trying to jump into at least the first part of the quest in the campaign. And I want to save that because I haven't looked at that yet. So this is just the Encore stream of everything I did in the first playthrough. And then I'll have... The reason why I did it, of course, just to repeat from earlier, is I did not set it up correctly to record on Twitch. And so now I have those settings correct. And I'm going to highlight those, make those into highlights, and upload them on YouTube so people can watch them later on at their own time. The only other kind of final thing that I kind of mentioned I was going to talk about is the reception of the game. I think a little bit of the reception is kind of mixed, and I can see some of it. If you look at the daily quests that are available, which is down here, this exclamation mark, you can do things, for example, every day to get some Valor points. And again, those Valor points are used to purchase more cards and then other kind of superficial effects and decorations. But you'll notice for example, the Wizard daily challenge, play 20 event cards. That's not too bad. I've already played 4 and I just played the tutorial. That's not too bad for 75. For 90, for a lore player, I can play 20 lore cards. I've already done 4 of those. So if you can see, I probably play anywhere between 4 games, maybe more, maybe a little bit more, and I can get these 2 daily quests and get about 165 gold. Now here's where we get some of the daily quests where I'm seeing a little bit of the claims of grindiness. Play 10 allies with range. I've only played 2. Now I only have to play 10 to get this 85 points, but in a game, what are the chances that I'm going to get a range player out of my 30 cards when I'm playing like any random scenario? I might not play all my cards. So I would either have to build a deck with lots of allies plugged in, which might be a cool deck build. A range attack deck maybe is trying to get you to try out some new strategies. It's not a huge amount, and they are, again, remember this is early access, so keep that in mind. Don't be too harsh on this, especially at first, until they get these numbers tweaked out as far as what you have to do for daily quests. 10 might not be so bad, especially if you have like a deck that's really geared toward ranged allies. But again, there are some aspects of it that seem like they might be harder to complete than others. I know I play some of the mobile free to play games, and some of them um, have more or less of a grindy feel to them, depending on how many quests do I need to complete, for example, before I get the points, the daily points needed. And I think they're still working those numbers out. So again, there's still a few months left of early access. They're really good about listening to the community, and I think that because of that, they'll tweak those numbers so that they make more sense. They feel better. This is a very early stage. The other thing that people are kind of criticizing the game about, if they have negative things to say, is that it's kind of Hearthstone clone-ish. But again, and that things are kind of simplified from the physical game. But if you remember when the physical game came out, it was really hard to get a glimpse of exactly how complex and how deep the game could go, and strategy and building your deck and taking it into battle. And then also for each quest, man, the quests that start off with a core set are so simple compared to the complexity you get into when you get into quests like Khazad-dûm, or I even played Battle of Lake Town. I still have never beat that quest. I played it probably like 15 times, and it's so hard, it's so complex that I still have yet to build a deck or have a group of people that can build decks to beat that quest. So I think we obviously have to kind of give these kind of games time to build up a good pool, not just of character cards and player cards, but also scenarios and different things. And I think they'll really kind of shine as it goes on. I don't think it's necessarily going to be feeling like it's all there right at the beginning. But that's kind of what these living card games are about. If you're familiar with those from Fantasy Flight, they have a different kind of business model where living card games, everyone has access to the same pool of cards to build their decks. And that's a really cool change, I feel like, from the other model they could have taken, which is you purchase booster packs and you might get a card that you want, you might not, and then you end up having to grind cards down to some resource and maybe spend those to get new card draws. And it really, to me, I feel like this is a business model that I like more, and so I really want to see it promoted more than, say, the Hearthstone model, where you kind of get a random deck of cards, or Magic the Gathering, where it's all about how much money you have to spend, versus really how, you having maybe to spend a little bit of money and getting to work instead, or focus instead on the tactics of building the perfect 30 card deck. So again, that's just me kind of on my soapbox again, not the first time, about this game. And hopefully some of the critics will take a step back and think to themselves, okay, this is early release, still got to give it time. It's not the actual release of the game. That's something that'll be built, plus the fact that as a living card game or any kind of deck builder game, it will become, the complexity, the sophistication will evolve over time, with the quests and the character decks and things like that. The ability to have a lot more of those features in. I imagine that a lot of the later scenarios are probably very complex in their tactics compared to the tutorial, which is what we saw here. And of course, even the tutorial looks really combat heavy at first, but then as you realize they integrate later on, you can see there's the fate option, the fate track, as well as the objective tracks and questing that you can do at the same time. So, with that in mind, I will be back tomorrow at the same time at 8 o'clock p.m. So please tune in and check it out. You can also go to my YouTube page and check out anytime. I'll have my YouTube video uploaded for this Encore presentation, and then I'll be back tomorrow. We'll be taking a look at the Vault, the Palantir, the Deck Builder, which is the really cool features, and then we'll be getting back into and checking out the first quest in the campaign. All right, so for the rest of you, if I don't see you tomorrow, be sure and tune in. Check out the YouTube replays, and then also check out Table Flipping Games on Saturday. We'll be back with the continuation of our Gloomhaven campaign, which we're really excited about. It's kind of a happy, sad kind of moment. But we're getting close to the end. So we'll see you tomorrow for another stream of Lord of the Rings Living Card Game by Fantasy Flight Interactive. See you later.